A top Trump witness was just grilled by Democrats in the U.S. Senate, and he clearly struggled with it. He's Trump's choice for the next Federal Reserve chairman. Kevin Warsh sat down for testimony in the Senate, and Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren didn't hold back. She brought up Warsh's ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Warsh showed up in the Epstein files at an Epstein gathering, and she asked him about investments tied directly to Epstein, and Warsh clearly wasn't ready for that. Watch how he tries to dodge the questions here. But Warren wasn't letting him off the hook. Play the clip.
Would you answer my question, please? I asked. You have $100 million in undisclosed assets. And what I'm asking is, are any of those with this outfit that invests in companies affiliated with President Trump or his family, companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles set up by Jeffrey Epstein? It's a yes or no question.
Senator, I've worked tirelessly with the ethics officials at the Office of Government Ethics.
And you have not
come to an ethics agreement with them and have agreed, Senator, to sell all of my financial assets,
Mr.
including
Warsh,
the Duquesne assets.
Are you refusing to tell us if you have investments, for example, in vehicles set up to advance Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what you're telling us? You just won't tell us?
Senator, what I'm telling you is that those assets that you represent as Juggernaut will be sold if I'm confirmed before I take office and sign the oath of office.
Let me follow up on that. Will you at least disclose how you plan to disclose and divest these secret assets? I'm sure you understand that the public might question your motives if, for example, billionaire Stanley Druckenmiller, who you honored in your opening statement, and who makes a living guessing what the Fed will do next, cuts you a massive check for $100 million as you take the oath of office to become the new Federal Reserve Chair.
Senator, as you know, it sounds like your fight might not be with me, but the Office of Government Ethics. I've come to full agreement with them and have agreed to divest all of those assets.
I'm asking you
especially
a very
those that you referenced
question,
before
Mr.
I take
Warsh,
the oath of office.
And Senator Warren wasn't finished there. She kept pressing him about this fund, $100 million worth of investments he holds. Will he make those disclosures? If he's going to be the next Federal Reserve chairman, about his Epstein ties, about his investment ties to Donald Trump, why not come clean? He's under oath here. Talk about it and watch how he refuses to answer. Here, play this clip.
Has been plagued by deeply disturbing ethics scandals in recent years involving at least 6 Fed officials. So it's critical that the next chair have no financial conflicts, none. You have more than $100 million in investments that you have refused to disclose to ethics officials and to the public. So let me ask, do the Juggernaut Fund or the THSDFS LLC invest in any companies affiliated with President Trump or his family, companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles established by Jeffrey Epstein?
Senator Warren, thank you. So let me first share a point of agreement with you. The Fed has 2 tools. One is its monetary policy, and the second is its credibility. And the scandals that you talked about, the ethics problems you talked about, went to the core of the credibility that is.
And there was more strong cross-examination of Kevin Warsh. Credit to Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock. He questioned Warsh. Okay, you don't want to answer those questions about your Epstein ties. You're going to be the next Federal Reserve chairman if your nomination gets confirmed. Though we'll see after some of that questioning. So tell us, what grade would you give the U.S. economy right now? How do you think the economy is doing? Watch this terrible response. Play this clip.
You will serve as chair of one of the most powerful economic institutions in the world. Decisions you make would move markets, affect Americans' retirement savings and ability to buy homes. It would influence the global economy. You currently serve as a lecturer at Stanford University. If you were to assign, if Professor Warsh were to assign a letter grade to the American economy today for the average working family, what grade would you assign?
Senator, it was good to meet with you in your office. In modern academic institutions, they give everybody A's, so it's not a fair comparison. Especially at elite universities, I know everyone gets perfect grades.
Well, what grade would you give the economy?
Well, if I gave a student anything other than an A, the dean would summon me to his office because I would have hurt his self-image.
Well, the Americans that I talk to, particularly in the state of Georgia, who haven't had the benefit of attending some of these elite institutions, are trying to make their lives work. They're sitting around their kitchen tables trying to figure out how to put their kids through school. And regardless of how the markets are doing, consumer confidence is at a record low. So that's their grade on the economy.
Okay, can I go back to Elizabeth Warren for a moment too? Because there was another round of questions she asked Kevin Warsh, where she asked him whether Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. Watch his response again, flailing all over the place. Play this clip.
Take that as a
I would
no
be
as well.
redeeming my
So
assets
Donald
before
Trump
I take
has
office.
made clear that he does not want an independent Fed. In fact, he has said, and I quote, "Anybody that disagrees with me will never be Fed chairman." And he's made clear that you are his sock puppet, saying last week that interest rates will drop, quote, "when Kevin gets in." Yeah, I think they do. Not when economic conditions change, we'll get lower rates. Not when the economy needs it. Nope. He said, when my guy, Kevin Warsh, is in there, we'll get the interest rates that Donald Trump, wants. So independence takes courage. Let's check out your independence and your courage. We'll start easy. Mr. Warsh, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
We try to keep politics, if I'm confirmed, out of the Federal
I'm just
Reserve.
asking a factual question. I need to know, I need to measure your independence and your courage.
Senator, I believe that this body certified that election many years ago.
That's not the question I'm asking. I'm asking, did Donald Trump lose in 2020?
And I'm suggesting you in
I'm
2020, the
suggesting
Fed
you can't
made
answer that.
huge inflation problem, and you certified the election.
So
We
let
need to
me
keep
ask you
politics
another
out of
question.
monetary policy.
Next up is Democratic Senator from Nevada, Cortez Masto. Here's her cross-examination of Warsh, where she said, "Do you realize that in 2007, right before the Great Recession hit because of subprime mortgages, you said subprime mortgages were great, that they'd gotten a bad reputation, and then the economy crashed? Are you really the person who should be lecturing us right now and becoming the next Federal Reserve chairman?" Play this clip.
Misinforming seniors about reverse mortgages. And in 2007, you said, and I quote, "subprime mortgages have gotten a bad name in this environment, and in some cases, that's not just." You also said that you don't see any immediate systemic risk issues among big banks. And you said that at that time. And then just recently, and this is what I want you to address, Senator Warren has said that you told her you had no regrets during this tenure. How can we trust that your economic theory, when you were wrong then, is going to be the accurate theory we need now to help so many families and businesses that are struggling with the policies that we're dealing with now?
Senator, let me address a few things. The chairman is going to cut me off when he must. But I would say this, for many years before the global financial crisis, I warned about the very real risks of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac blowing up, which they did. I think that part of the housing market was vulnerable for many years, and not enough was done about it, even in spite of my protestations and my urging about GSE reform. It wasn't done. I think that compounded the financial crisis. Secondly, I think subprime mortgages then, subprime assets then, were indicative of prices of almost every financial asset that were mispriced. What I suggested then and what I believe now is that subprime mortgages were just indicative of a set of prices that were incorrect, and they all repriced. Just to give one fine example before I turn to the chairman.
Perhaps no examples right now.
Okay, sorry.
Let's go to Senator
Thank you.
Haggerty. I want to give you the opportunity to finish that exchange.
Democrats weren't finished there. Democratic Senator Tina Smith cross-examined Warsh about the terrible economy right now. about how there's been zero job growth in 2025. But according to Warsh, he says the overall shape of the economy is improving. This claim is completely false. The overall shape of the economy is doing very, very badly right now. Here, play this clip.
Like never before. So do you agree with that statement? Is that how you see the economy, that is roaring like never roaring before?
So Senator, if I can clarify two things. One, there's a difference between the change in prices and inflation. The change in prices happen in a market economy. When inflation moves up, that's because the Fed had something to do with it. Now, on the state of the economy, I would say that the broad contours of the economy are improving. The potential of the economy, the real results of the economy are improving, but I think it can improve more. And I think in the years ahead, I think the economy's potential is strengthening.
So, the reality is that the economic data, understanding what you're saying about economic data being not imperfect, there was almost zero job growth in 2025. And so that looks to me like not a roaring economy. It looks like a weak economy, which is what my constituents are telling me back in Minnesota.
I just want you to think about the nonsense language these Trump supporters use. In my opinion, it's the language of con artists, of scammers, of Ponzi schemers. Right. Let's talk about the frameworks, the overall shape. No. Answer the damn question. Warsh. How's the economy doing for most Americans, other than your right-wing billionaire friends? It's doing terribly. And most Americans feel like we are in a Great Depression right now, because that's what's happening inside their homes. Why don't you stay connected to reality and stop hanging out at Club Rose Garden and Mar-a-Lago, whatever it is you're doing? Next up, Democratic Senator Van Hollen cross-examines Warsh. Let's play it.
So just to better understand how you think about economics, in the economic model Bernanke laid out, let's say there's an economy with decent growth and no recession. If the central bank were to cut rates from 3.5 to 1% or lower, a massive cut, that would typically push prices up, right?
Senator, unlike many of my colleagues, past and present, I don't believe in forward guidance. I don't believe that I should be previewing for you what a future decision might be. I think it's essential that the
Warsh,
Fed make decisions in the room.
Mr. Warsh, I'm not asking you what decision you would make. Obviously, that's going to be up to you. I'm asking you for the framework in which you think about these things. And it seems a pretty straightforward question about what would happen if we reduced interest rates by the end of this year to 1% or less. And under the Bernanke model, and I think almost every economist or most economists would say that that will drive up prices. And so that's what I'm asking you. Would you agree that that would likely drive up prices?
So, Senator, the Fed has two important monetary policy tools. One is interest rates, and the other is a balance sheet that we created in the 2008 financial crisis. Those tools should be working in concert, not at cross purposes. So it's hard for me to isolate one variable when we'd have to have a discussion on the other.
All right.
But generally, sorry.
Well, let me just say this was a pretty clear question about the framework in which these decisions are made. I have heard you talk about how AI may change that calculation.
Yes.
I will just say, and I think you know this, I mean, I have this, the Financial Times pointed out the economists reject Kevin Warsh's claim that the AI boom will enable rate cuts. And I find it just implausible to suggest that by the end of this year, AI would produce such increases in productivity that it could reduce in a rate cut to below 1%. And you can't tell me that that would very likely increase prices.
So, Senator, can I?
Strong line of questioning there. Next up, Democratic Senator Andy Kim from Jersey. Play this clip.
Legacy of inflation, what I think is the biggest economic policy error in 40 or 50 years, happened just a few years ago, and we're still living with the remnants of it. I think inflation is less problematic than it was a couple of years ago, but I would not.
But the problem of affordability continues, though. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest with you. When I hear, I heard 2 months ago, President Trump say. He said, quote, "What word have you not heard over the last 2 weeks? Affordability. Because I've won. I've won affordability." It sounds like you would disagree with that assessment that the fight for affordability for American families is over.
So I think the trend is going in the right direction.
But we still have more work to do.
Well, the way I would describe it, Senator, is the cumulative increase in prices starting in early 2020 till now is between 25 and 35%. So I understand what hardworking Americans say. It's still a struggle. That's a legacy of a past policy error.
One thing that you talked about before is about, just the real costs that families are facing right now. And I appreciate that you were pushing back on that comment that the president had about calling the energy prices and the fuel price increases that we're having fake inflation, because right now Americans have paid more than $8.4 billion more in gas during the first month of this war. Fertilizer, 70% of respondents to the Farm Bureau survey said that fertilizer is unable to be afforded right now, just given the price increases. Are you concerned that there could be real long-term effects of this war in Iran, especially if we're continuing to see these challenges when it comes to fuel and fertilizer?
Senator, if my reform agenda, if confirmed, stands for anything, it's for the central bank, especially the Fed chairman, to stay in its lane.
I know that, but you
I
also
wouldn't
have
want to wander outside of it. I'm happy.
But you're also charged with forecasting in terms of understanding where our economy is going. So does an impact of that magnitude rise to something that the Fed should keep an eye on and be concerned about?
The Fed should have an open mind towards all sorts of data, but the things that central banks can affect are things that are not one-off in nature, but are persistent and find their way into the generalized price level.
And that's something I wanted to.
I like this part too. Senator Warren's basically saying, can I ask one more question? Is there any part of Donald Trump's agenda at all that you disagree with? You don't want to answer my questions about your Epstein ties. So, you probably agree with Donald Trump's handling of everything Epstein related. What about his broader agenda? Anything you disagree with? Watch his response. Play this clip.
In our meeting, you
Monetary
said
policy out
you
of
would
politics.
be independent because you're, quote, a tough guy. Those were your words, tough guy. And you will be able to stand up to President Trump. So let's try it again. Name one aspect of President Trump's economic agenda with which you disagree.
Well, Senator, the Federal Reserve in recent years has wandered outside of its remit, wandered into other
I'm
areas.
asking for something
That's
you
not something I'm
disagree with
prepared to
Donald
do.
Trump on.
If I'm
Just one
confirmed,
economic-
the Federal
one
Reserve should stay in
economic
its
issue.
lane.
Just one little place where you disagree with Donald
Well, I
Trump.
do have a disagreement, actually, Senator, with the president. I think even this morning, he said that he thought I was out of central casting. I think central casting, I'd look older, grayer, and maybe show up here with a cigar of sorts.
Quite adorable. But we need a Fed chair who is independent. That's the only way we preserve the independence of the Federal Reserve. If you can't answer these questions, you don't have the courage and you don't have the independence.
I agree
Thank
with you on
you,
independence, Senator.
Next up, you had Democratic Senator Jack Reed cross-examining Warsh. Let's play it.
Dispose of all the assets you've identified to the Office of Government Ethics, you will not be in compliance. Is that correct?
That's not my understanding. Excuse me. My understanding is that a signed ethics agreement provides duties and responsibilities on me and duties and responsibilities on the government. And that's what the nature of the ethics agreement is.
You have an agreement that within 90 days, you will dispose of all your assets. All your assets. Is that correct?
Senator, I have an agreement within 90 days so that there is no appearance of anything inappropriate, that I would divest all of my assets, the majority of which before sworn in. What I've disclosed, Senator, is all the information that is mine to disclose. I've shared all information about assets that I control and that I can share, which I did much to the satisfaction of the Government Ethics Office.
Excuse me. What you've said is that you will take the oath, if confirmed as chairman, with assets that have already been identified as presenting potential conflicts of interest. Will you agree to not take the oath until you have fully disposed all the assets that you've been identified?
Senator, I'll agree to take the oath pursuant to the terms of the ethics agreement that I struck with the Office of Government Ethics. I don't think anyone could do more than that other than me. I've agreed to divest even more assets so that I will have virtually no financial assets.
The divestiture is totally up to you. You can select what assets you're disposing of, what assets you keep. Is that correct? And then still be sworn in as chairman.
The divestiture is up to the agreement that I struck with the Office of Government Ethics.
Who makes the decision as to what assets are divested, you or the Office of Government Ethics?
Both of us. That's why it's an agreement.
Excuse me. I must commend you on the way you can circularly go around questions and not answer them. It's a skill. Unfortunately, it's not a good skill for the chairman or of the Federal Reserve Board. We typically ask questions and expect to get direct, faithful answers. You haven't given them to the ranking member, and you're not giving them to me.
And then finally, we had Democratic Senator Gallego of Arizona. Here was his line of questioning. Let's play this clip.
Earlier today, you said to Senator Kennedy that President Trump never demanded you to cut interest rates in your job interview. Is that your sworn testimony?
That is, Senator.
Okay. Well, someone here is lying then, because it's either you or President Trump. Because in an interview with the Wall Street Journal of December 12th, President Trump confirmed that he pressed you on your commitment to support interest rates cuts. And I quote, during a 45-minute meeting with Warsh on Wednesday at the White House, the president pressed Warsh on whether he could trust him to support interest rate cuts if he were chosen to lead the central bank. According to people familiar with the meeting, Trump in the general interview confirmed that, repeating, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter for the record the Wall Street Journal article, December 12th. Trump says he's leaning towards Warsh or has it to lead the Fed. So, this brings up an issue of credibility at this point. Who's lying here? Is it you or the president? Because the president confirmed that he did ask you to cut interest rates.
Senator, there's, of course, a third alternative. You cite a couple of reporters for a leading financial newspaper. I recall reading that story at the time.
Did you issue a correction?
I think those reporters either need better sources or better journalist standards.
Did you ask for a correction?
There are things in the newspaper, Senator, I see all the time that don't strike my ear as correct.
So is, in your opinion, that the president then is lying when he said he did not ask you?
I can only repeat to you, Senator, what I said to several of your colleagues.
So you did not. You right now, under sworn testimony, are saying just to right now that the president of the United States in that job interview did not ask you to cut interest rates.
The president never asked me to commit to interest rate cuts at any particular meeting over the period of my tenure at the Fed. He didn't ask for it. He didn't demand it. He didn't require it. And nor would I have ever done so.
So if these reporters come back and say to do another follow-up on this and they confirm what they heard, what will your response be?
Well, my response would be what I suggested to you a few moments ago. As I read that story in real time, I remember thinking they either need better journalistic standards or better sources.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think right there. Hit subscribe